Sons of Gondor, of Rohan, my brothers, I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship, but it is not this day. An hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down, but it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West. Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Season 7. I'm Danny J.
And I'm Joel N.
I am Trevor D.
Welcome back to
Keep on Tolkien.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I love that opening excerpt. It's straight out of the movies, and I could just see like Viggo Mortensen's character yelling that out.
It is a perfect one to just jazz you up over, like, men. Not like dudes, but like the race of men. You know what I mean? Like, includes women.
Yeah, as you were saying, the whole race of men, everybody, men of the West.
Men of the West, yeah. Hell yeah.
I just keep thinking of the music, the score from the movie.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, that's why I had to just take that. I was like, I could find something from the text, but no, let's go from the movie.
I feel like that's one of the easiest excerpts you could have picked too, just because it is one of those things you can hear him, like it's so in your mind. Like
I feel like almost anyone could pinpoint, anyone who's at least like grew up with those movies and stuff would instantly pinpoint that.
Yeah, that's Viggo.
But the reason that we chose that excerpt is because
we're talking about the race of men.
Yeah, today's episode we are going to be talking about the race of men,
and this is a one of two. This turned out to be 2 episodes.
yeah.
There's a lot of information.
It started as one like damn near 40-page outline, so we split it into 2 episodes, guys.
Yeah, it turns out there was a lot more history behind the race of men than we had previously thought.
Yeah. So we're going to cover the first stage, through the first stage in this episode.
Yes. Today is the first stage. Let's get started a little bit. When we're talking about men, let's get a little more specific. What do we mean? So we're talking about men, the sentient race of beings created by Iluvatar. They're technically the second-born children of Iluvatar.
Yeah, and they're first mentioned in the Ainulindale. Everybody loves that, right? The Song of Creation. So today for part 1, we'll be discussing the origins of men and the history of men throughout the First Age, as we said before. Let's get into some names and titles.
Yeah, so a few names for the race of men. We have the children of Iluvatar. They're also called the Atani, which is Quendi for second-born. There's also Hildor, which is Quenya for followers.
They also have been known as the Apanoar. Is that how you say that word?
Apanonar. Yeah, I think you got it right.
Apanonar.
Yeah.
That's a fun one, which in Quenya means afterborn.
Yeah.
They're also known as second-born, or the younger children of Iluvatar.
Yeah, sometimes they're called the strangers, the usurpers, also the ephedrine, which sounds like a allergy medication, but
it sure does, yeah.
But it's actually means followers in Sindarin, and ephedrim is just people of the followers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
They've also been known as the Firamar, which is Quenya for mortals. The Engwar, which is Quenya for the sickly. That seems more derogatory. That's kind of impolite.
We also got the self-cursed, the guests, the inscrutable.
I like that one.
The heavy-handed.
Ooh.
The night-fearers. And the children of the sun.
Yeah.
Praise the sun.
Praise the sun. Big, long list of names for these folks.
I really like those last
This is a very
3.
broad episode, you know? It's a very umbrella-type fucking episode. So
The heavy-handed, the night-fearers, the children of the sun.
They're also significantly different, like, in what they actually describe, which is just pretty cool. It kind of just already, like, we have such a broad spectrum that the race of men fits into.
Yeah.
There's actually way more terms for men than I actually thought there were.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I guess that just is to be expected. You know, No, I did not know that. Am I surprised that there are a million different terms for men?
No.
No.
Not at all. There's one excerpt that I didn't put in here, but it literally says like half of that list just in like one sentence.
Oh my.
And I was like, nobody wants to read that.
That's wow. Does that come from a lore master? Like, that's a lot of information.
It's from somewhere in the Silmarillion, I think. So let's get into the origins of men. It starts all the way back at the Ainulindale, like we said, the creation song.
Yeah, the beginning of everything, the beginning of time itself.
Okay, guys. So we're going to do probably the most brief recap of the Ainulindale that you'll ever hear, right? This is like Campbell's condensed version of the Ainulindale.
There's actually going to be a few times we give you some condensed versions of stories in this episode.
And you got to mix the water yourself or the milk. You know?
The milk?
Yeah.
Mix it in.
If you're making tomato soup with condensed,
I've never done that.
You've never done that?
I've never done that.
Oh my God.
It always says that on the can. If you want creamier soup, use a cup of milk.
I never buy condensed soup.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. It's good.
You're missing the fuck out, dude. So this is Campbell's condensed Ainulindale, guys. What is the Ainulindale? It's the song that created the universe in the Tolkien Legendarium, that, the setting.
Yeah, and it is quite literally a song sung by the Ainur under the direction of the one god Ilúvatar.
Yeah, who is the creator, also known as Eru. And after the music stops, Ilúvatar shows them a vision of all that the song would bring into being. This is known as the vision of Ilúvatar.
And the Ainur essentially go about the rest of their lives just seeking to bring that vision into being. To create that vision that they saw.
Yeah, and that's it, guys. That's condensed version.
Yeah,
short and sweet.
That is an incredibly condensed version of creation.
If you want to know more, we have pretty much in any episode of anybody that's that's Ainur. So Saruman, Gandalf, Sauron. We talk about it in many, many different episodes. So just go back to the backlog. We also want to introduce a new segment here that we're calling Trev Check.
Trev Checks.
Trev Check.
This is going to integrate Trever more into the overall episodes, which is going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah, so rather than us blabbing back and forth infinitely, we're looking for a conversation.
Yeah, we get some Trev conversation because that's what he's best at. So we find Trever, in his role in the podcast, to be the voice of the less knowledgeable Tolkieneers, and we mean that most respectfully.
Yeah, and we love all the things Tolkien, and we want to make sure that all of our listeners can keep up with some of the heavy topics and some of the more dense material.
And that's where Trever comes in. So we will be checking in with Trever every now and then, and he will be asking clarifying questions or thoughts on the content. So let's get right into it. First, Trev check.
All right, guys. So we just went over the Ainulindale, which is a really fun word to look at. But you say it's the story of creation through song. What do you mean specifically?
Well, yeah, it's literally music, man. It's a literal melody and lyrics fucking song. And Eru, he originally created the Ainur, the angelic or the holy ones. And he taught them how to sing. That was like how they communicated.
Yeah, that was like kind of the first thing to really happen. He created all the Ainur angelic folk, and then he was like, we're singing, let's do it.
But Trever got a good point here the other day, being the science nerd that he is. How could they sing in space with no vacuum? Yeah. Or with no air?
How could they be making music before the existence of air for sound vibrations and before the existence of time itself?
Yeah.
Time, light, yeah.
All of these things are pretty necessary for how could you have a time signature without time?
Time. Trevor's real role on the podcast is just tear holes in Tolkien. So the music that they made was actually, it became the whole history of everything, the whole history of the world and the universe and everything.
Yeah.
So would you say that Ilúvatar was kind of like a conductor? How did he go about this?
Yeah, totally. He gave them, he started like specific themes or melodies for them to follow.
Yeah, these themes were actually very important when it comes to the history of men. So there were actually in total 3 separate themes or melodies that Ilúvatar had begun and introduced to the Ainur to sing.
Yeah, the first and second themes are ruined by the discord of Melkor. Melkor and his buddies singing off key or some shit.
Yeah, and then the third theme, by the time it came around, there was so much discord that the third theme was actually pretty much incomprehensible to the rest of the Ainur. It was a musical mess.
That seems kind of weird, right? Because the Ainur are sort of kind of gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you say it's like incomprehensible, what do you think that means?
Well, the third theme is what told the part of the history that told the history of the children of Iluvatar, which would be elves and men.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just kind of incomprehensible, again, because of the discord, but because it was incomprehensible, nobody saw the coming of the children of Iluvatar from the third theme. And yeah, this is why the destiny of men is not predetermined, or it's not known by the Valar.
Yeah, even to the Valar, it is unknown.
They were unable to comprehend that part of the song, the third theme.
Yeah.
I kind of like how you guys say it's like the history. It's almost as if it's all predetermined, but
like Calvinism.
Like what?
Like Calvinism.
Yeah,
it's a religion joke.
Oh. Yeah, but this is sort of like saying it's not predetermined and it's unknown even to the Valar, but like you say it's the history. It almost is saying it's like fate. It is sort of
It's kind of like so it is kind of like it is predetermined, but they don't know it because they weren't able to comprehend it. It was too much. The third thing was too incomprehensible for them, so they missed that part.
Yeah.
So elves and men to the Ainu are like miracles. They love it.
Yeah, they're super fascinated by them.
They could have never imagined them. They never saw them coming, kind of thing, and they love them.
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of just reminds me of how like quantum mechanics breaks down determinism.
Yeah, dude.
Yes. Thank you, Trevor. This magical concept. Let's break it down into quantum mechanics.
Does the Tolkien world have Middle Earth quantum mechanics?
That's Trevor, science nerd. He spends all day on YouTube watching science videos.
That's about half true, actually.
So let's get into the children of Iluvatar themselves, all right? So the firstborn, the elves, right?
Yeah. So we can't talk about the secondborn without talking about the firstborn. The elves, they're immortal unless slain, and they know no sickness or really any affliction, and they are more or less bound to the earth itself, the physical earth.
How do you mean bound to the earth? How could they be bound to it?
Well, they are more or less the world made sentient, if that makes sense. They're more part of the world than dwelling in it.
Kind of like we are the observers of our own universe.
Well, it's kind of like how humans are on Earth. We're really the planet made sentient. We're not. We weren't dropped off here by an alien, at least as far as we know. We're part of the planet.
We are one with nature.
Yeah.
Kind of in a similar concept to be like the way that the Ents are like sentient versions of the trees. They're like extensions of plant life. They're taking that a little bit further, and they're saying that essentially elves are like that, but for the entire physical world. They're bound to the physical world.
Mm-hmm. And upon being slain, they go to the house of Mandos to await reincarnation or the last battle, whatever comes first.
I actually don't think I realized that elves would be reincarnated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, several elves are reincarnated, one of which is Glorfindel, the most famous of which.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I remember that, actually.
And doesn't Finrod get to go back and isn't there lore that says Finrod gets to go back and live with his lover?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think he actually gets reincarnated, but he doesn't have to come back to Middle Earth. That lucky son of a bitch. He actually gets to fucking finally relax and live in Valinor with his loved one.
Good for Finrod.
So would you say that this is also kind of like how Gandalf goes from gray to white? Like that's sort of a reincarnation?
Yeah, that's totally
reincarnation. Oh, yeah.
He dies.
He literally died and came. Yeah, he was literally reincarnated. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So not just the elves can be reincarnated.
Oh, no, yeah.
Nope.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you betcha. Yeah, you got it there, bud.
Yeah.
So now on to men, the secondborn.
Yeah, they're mortal. So they eventually just die for no reason,
for no reason.
as we all do.
As we all do, eventually just die for no reason.
Yeah, they could have illness or afflictions.
Yeah.
But this is considered the gift of men.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to die and be free of the wariness of the forever living on world.
Yeah, exactly. So when they die, they go to the House of Mandos for a little bit, but then they depart from the world altogether.
Yeah, nobody knows where.
So the men get to leave, but the elves have to stay in the halls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
literally nobody knows where men go. None of the Valar, not even Mandos.
Like Christ said, only the Father knows, right? Yeah. Yeah. Only Iluvatar knows.
He won't tell anybody either, it seems.
Yeah. But yeah, this is just one of those many things that will now and forever remain a Tolkien mystery.
Ta-da! You said the thing.
You said the thing. Remember that, guys? A few episodes ago?
Yeah, refer back to Tolkien mystery. That's actually one of our favorite recent
episodes.
We
love that episode, yeah.
It's so good.
We're big fans of it here at KOT.
So the difference between the children of Iluvatar is brilliantly highlighted by a conversation between Finrod Felagund and his human friend, Andereth.
Yeah.
And this conversation is called Athrabeth Finrod a Andreth.
Which just means the debate of Finrod and Andereth. And this is found exclusively in the History of Middle-earth series, Volume 10, Morgoth's Ring. This was my first time reading this. I was
I've skimmed over this section like maybe once or twice before for some research and some other past episodes we were doing, and holy shit, you guys. This is so cool. One of the most... I don't know how to describe this. It's I want to say dense, but I don't think that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's a whole different animal. But yeah, we have 2 big juicy excerpts from it. But I'd highly recommend go checking that out.
Is highbrow the right word? Like it's very it's a lot of very fancy speech. It's very lofty speech. Yeah. And like if you've read the Silmarillion, you're used to some of that. But this is like to the nth
level
degree.
10, yeah.
Experts.
But yeah, one of the things they discuss in this debate is death, of course. Andreth actually goes ahead and says that many of the wise among men think that the fate of death is straight up caused by Melkor, and that Iluvatar did not intend for them to die.
I didn't know that previous to this.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, so Finrod in response, he says that Melkor is actually not responsible for death, and that is actually a lie that in itself comes from Melkor.
Yeah, and I found this to be super interesting when I was writing this episode, because this is the earliest mention of men resenting or straight up not understanding the gift of men.
Death, yeah.
And that was the seed that was planted early that would grow to be the downfall of Numenor and just men in general.
Yeah, you might say that's one of Melkor's earliest and deepest corruptions in the race of men. The race of men wasn't originally like that.
Mm-hmm.
We were discussing that a little bit earlier, but...
Yeah.
It's definitely a basically since the dawn of time kind of infection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, he was kind of there at the dawn of time.
He was part of it. Yeah.
He did Inception on them.
All right. Had to talk a little bit about this. We've got an excerpt from the History of Middle-earth, Volume 10, Morgoth's Ring, Athrabeth Finrod a Andreth, read by Joel.
Then Finrod was silent, but after a while he said, "These words are strange and terrible, and you speak with the bitterness of one whose pride has been humiliated and seeks therefore to wound those to whom she speaks. If all the wise among men speak so, then well I can believe that ye have suffered some great hurt. But not by my people, Andreth, nor by any of the Quendi. If we are as we are, and ye are as we find you, that is not by any deed of ours, nor of our desire. And your sorrow does not rejoice us, nor feed our pride. One only would say otherwise, that enemy whom you do not name. Beware of the chaff of your corn, Andreth, for it may be deadly. Lies of the enemy, that out of envy will breed hate. Not all the voices that come out of the darkness speak truth to those minds that listen for strange news. But who did you this hurt? Who imposed death upon you? Melkor is plain, you would say, or whatever name you have for him in secret, for you speak of death and his shadow as if these were one and the same, and as if to escape from the shadow was to escape also from death. But these two are not the same, Andreth. So I deem, or death would not be found at all in the world which he did not design, but another. Nay, death is but a name that we give to something he has tainted, and it sounds therefore evil, but untainted, its name would be good.
Yeah, the Athrabeth also goes on to show the resentment that lies between the Eldar and men. This too is very important, for it is a seed of Melkor's lies to come, or lies that have come to fruition, rather.
Yeah, Melkor fears solidarity among the children of Iluvatar, between elves and men, and so he constantly seeks to divide them. And we know from our history that the only time the good guys are successful is when they stand together, right?
Always. Solidarity forever.
So we have another excerpt here from the History of Middle-earth, Volume 10, Morgoth's Ring, the Athrabeth Finrod a Andreth, read by Trever.
I see, said Andreth, that in this ye of the high elves do not differ from your lesser kindred, whom we have met in the world, though they have never dwelt in the light. All ye elves deem that we die swiftly by our true kind, that we are brittle and brief, and ye are strong and lasting. We may be children of Eru, as you say in your lore, but we are children to you also. To be loved little, maybe, and yet creatures of less worth, upon whom you may look down from the height of your power and your knowledge with a smile, or with pity, or with shaking of heads. Alas, you speak near the truth, said Finrod. At least of many of my people, but not of all, and certainly not of me. But consider this well, Andrith. When we name you children of Eru, we do not speak lightly, for that name we do not utter ever in jest or without full intent. When we speak so, we speak out of knowledge, not out of mere elvish lore, and we proclaim that ye are our kin, in a kinship far closer, both Hroa and Fea, than that which binds together all other creatures of Arda, and ourselves to them.
Hell yeah, that's such a juicy fucking excerpt. I love this shit. So this section is like really interesting, but very long.
Yeah. This conversation is very long.
Yeah, so these two juicy excerpts we'll have to do for now.
Yeah, but we highly recommend this section to anyone who really likes Finrod or wants to hear some more of Middle-earth philosophy. This is a very philosophy-heavy section.
Yes indeed. So let's talk about the first emergence of men, when we first hearing about them in the histories.
So the first we hear of men is when they awake in the region of Hildorian during the second spring of Arda with the first rising of the sun.
Don't quote me on this, but I think Hildorian means land of the followers.
Oh,
because
okay.
Hildor meant the followers. We learned that earlier, remember?
Yeah.
So I think that means land of the followers or land of the Hildor.
That stands to reason. It's almost like the person who wrote this was
a linguist or something.
Fucking philologist or some shit.
Yeah, exactly.
What a nerd. So we got a excerpt here from the Silmarillion of Men, read by Danny.
At the first rising of the sun, the younger children of Iluvatar awoke in the land of Hildorian in the eastward regions of Middle-earth. But the first sun arose in the west, and the opening eyes of men were turned towards it, and their feet, as they wandered over the earth, for the most part strayed that way. The Etani they were named by the Eldar, the second people.
So shortly after the awakening of men, almost all of them are immediately turned to the worship of Morgoth. He was right there.
Yep. The vast majority of men become evil straight off the bat. Just right away.
So men weren't originally evil, but unfortunately, shortly after creation, Morgoth got him.
Yep. And there were at least some groups among them that resisted Morgoth, and they fled out of Hildorian, or the East in general, into the West. These were actually the forebears of the people whom the Eldar would call the Edain. And we got Home, a History of Middle-earth series, Volume 12, of Dwarves and Men, and the subsection, the Etani, and their languages.
The Etani and their kin were the descendants of peoples who in the Dark Ages had resisted Morgoth or had renounced him, and had wandered ever westward from their homes far away in the east, seeking the great sea of which distant rumor had reached them. They did not know that Morgoth had himself left Middle-earth, for they were ever at war with the vile things he had bred, and especially with the men who had made him their god, and believed that they could render him no more pleasing service than to destroy the renegades with every kind of cruelty. It was in the north of Middle-earth, it would seem, that the renegades survived in sufficient numbers to maintain their independence as brave and hardy peoples, but of their past they preserved only legends, and their oral histories reached no further back than a few generations of men.
Yeah, so all these people that were eventually become the Edain are refugees. They're fleeing from persecution, which is a theme throughout history, right?
I always thought it was sad that their oral history only ended up going back a couple generations.
Yeah, that's really sad because we don't know a lot of things about that era of men for that reason.
It's an easy way to write out the history.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? I think we need a Trev check here, guys.
Yeah, let's do a Trev check.
Because I got some questions.
We need to get like a little sound for that. Trev check.
All right. So I'm curious. When you say almost all of them are immediately turned to the worship of Morgoth, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, they're straight up coerced into the worship of Morgoth, and they see him as a god. And they start to persecute everyone else that doesn't believe that.
Yeah, it's definitely not to say that men are necessarily evil.
No, I wouldn't say that men are inclined toward evil at all. They just are. They're really into doing their own thing, and they want to do their own thing for as long as possible, and they don't want to die. And anybody that says differently has a leg up on them because they're susceptible to lying. But I don't think they're necessarily evil at heart, because Ilúvatar created them, and he can create nothing evil.
So they can be turned to evil. Would you say being so easily swayed is a direct result of the discord of Melkor?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I would definitely say.
Yeah, I think you could certainly argue that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So without Melkor, there would be no evil.
No, yeah, the
Absolutely.
discord he introduced in the song is literally manifested in evil throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's get into a really complicated subject that I didn't know anything about, but now I know everything about. This
yeah.
This is called the Sundering of Men.
Yeah, guys, and this may sound a little familiar to some of you. Some of you may be thinking about the Sundering of the Elves.
Which is still a classic KOT episode. That wasn't that like the first ever Minturd was in that episode? No, one of the first Minturds was in that episode.
Yeah, that was season 1 for us.
Yeah, long time ago.
Harken back.
But yeah, we explained how the elves sundered into different groups by their geographic traveling, right?
Right.
And this very same thing happens to men while they're coming into the West.
Hell yeah. Let's get into it. So some of the men following the rising sun into the West came into Beleriand.
Yeah, the host of men sundered a few times on the journey, ultimately, creating the three houses of the Edain. And what we mean by being sundered is like different languages, different culture.
Yeah, there's just, I don't necessarily want to say rifts because there wasn't like violence, but there's just separations between the
They
groups.
kind of just like split,
a natural
split went their own way.
Splits,
Kinda.
natural
a
separations.
natural separation of peoples, yeah. So the host was separated into two different groups originally. All right, keep track here, guys. This is where it starts getting in the weeds. So we got one southern group and one northern group.
Pretty simple.
I will tell you right now that the southern group remains intact throughout, and we can set them aside for now. But the northern group is sundered again into two groups, what they call the lesser group, and they arrived at the Sea of Ruin and lived at the foothills in the southwest of the sea. And then we have the greater group, which settled in the woods in the northeast corner, near the water.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The Sea of Ruin's not something we get a ton of information about.
No, not really.
But eventually the greater group up on the northeast side, they built ships and they sailed all the way down to the other side and met up with the lesser group. But surprisingly, by the time this happened, their languages had already started to separate. Started to sunder somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
So with this whole sundering thing, it kind of sounds like they went all over the place. Where did they go?
Well, some of the greater groups stayed behind in Rovanion, and they become ancestors of the Northmen, which we will talk about in the next episode. But the original southern group, they actually settled in the White Mountains for a time.
Yeah, they met up with men already living there called the Droog, whom we might know
affectionately know
as the Druedain.
Yeah, we love the Druedain here at KOT Podcast.
Underrated
group of people, but much more on them later.
Yeah, so they resumed their journey into the west, but some stayed behind, and these became the ancestors of the men of Eriador, also known as the Dunlendings.
Yeah, and the general men in the general like south of Eriador too, but also the Dunlendings as well. And we'll get more into Dunlendings later as well. But the lesser group, they actually made contact with dark elves of the east and dwarves in the mountains.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they this influenced their language and culture.
So I have a question about this southern group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are these peoples ones that were later corrupted, or are ones that are...
So the Edain, the houses we're talking about right now, the Edain are always faithful.
Always faithful.
Yeah, that's why they're called that.
But if you're talking about the northern and southern groups, yeah, I think you could say some of the southern groups probably got corrupted later on.
Oh, yeah, like the Dunlendings and so. Well, I don't know. I'm a Dunlending sympathizer, so it's hard to... I think they're kind of just fighting for their land, in my opinion. But
fair.
They're more independent than corrupted or anything.
Yeah, I don't think they're like super evil. I mean, they do serve Saruman at one point, but it is kind of to serve their own ends of getting their land back. So you can't really... I in my opinion, you can't really blame the Dunlendings. But yeah, they do become a various groups of people as they leave. So wherever they go, they leave pockets behind. So there are, the southern groups still down in the White Mountains as well.
Okay. But this also created a new dialect of the language of the northern group.
Right.
New dialects. They got introduced to elves and dwarves and language changed.
So we got two languages And then one language has 2 dialects.
Nice. Okay. All right. So now let's get talking about specifically the Edain.
Yeah, let's talk about their migration a little bit. The 3 groups that entered Beleriand at different times, this started in the 4th century of the First Age. They're named after their leaders at the time, for the most part, and they made contact at the time that they made contact with the Eldar.
Yeah. So the names of these houses named after their 3 leaders: Beor, Haleth, and what we know is the House of Hador, but it originally started as the House of Marek.
Yes, and we'll learn more about that later. The first men that entered Beleriand came in the year 310 of the First Age.
Yeah, this was the House of Beor, and they were followed by Haleth, and then later Hador last.
Let's talk a little bit about our boy Finrod and the discovery of men, because Finrod straight up discovers men in Beleriand for the first time.
Yeah, he was the first elf, I think, or at least of the elves in Beleriand.
Yeah.
What a great find that would be, though. Just finding another sentient being in the world.
It would be sick, right? Yeah.
It'd be like discovering aliens.
It literally would be, yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of what it was like. It was kind of like First Contact.
Yeah, it was.
So Finrod went out hunting with his cousins Maedhros and Maglor.
And not to be like ableist or anything, but I was just thinking of this today, like while I was going over this outline. How the fuck does Maedhros hunt? He's the dude's only got one arm.
Oh, that's right. He
Or
had
one hand.
He got chained up to
yeah, and they had to chop it off.
Angband, the outside
Yeah.
Angband, and they had to chop it off to save his life.
So like he probably can't shoot a bow. He might be able to use a sling.
Do you guys remember that there was like TV infomercials for this thing? It was like a ball on a stick, and it was a ring. You'd put it around your ankle and you jump over it.
Oh, the skip it?
The skip it.
Yeah, I had one. They're dangerous. It's a good way to crack your
Oh my
tibia.
God. I mean, he could also do like throwing knives, or
I was
I
thinking,
suppose.
I was
Or
thinking
you could,
he'd fight with the skip it. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe he got really. What if he got really good with poison darts? You only need one hand and a mouth for that, right?
I suppose. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, Maedhros, tell us how you hunt. But yeah, after getting tired of hunting, Finrod sets off on his own, and he takes the dwarf road down into Assyrian.
And he comes upon a camp of men. This happens to be the House of Beor, who had just recently crossed the mountain into Beleriand. And Finrod watches them from the trees, and he listens to them sing.
Yeah, and after they've fallen asleep, he comes among them, and he takes up a harp that Beor was previously playing, and he sings a song and plays a song on the harp. And we got an excerpt here from the Silmarillion, The Coming of Men into the West, by Trever.
Long Felagund watched them, and love for them stirred in his heart. But he remained hidden in the trees until they had fallen asleep. Then he went among the sleeping people, and sat beside their dying fire where none kept watch. And he took up a rude harp, which Beor had laid aside. And he played music upon it, such as the ears of men had not heard. They had as yet no teachers in the art, save only the dark elves of the wildlands. Now men awoke and listened to Felagund as he harped and sang, and each thought that he was in some fair dream, until he saw that his fellows were awake also beside him. But they did not speak or stir while Felagund still played, because of the beauty of the music and the wonder of the song. Wisdom was in the words of the elven king, and the hearts grew wiser that hearkened to him. For the things of which he sang, of the making of Arda, and the bliss of Aman beyond the shadows of the sea, came as clear visions before their eyes, and his elvish speech was interpreted in each mind according to its measure. Thus it was then men called King Felagund, whom they first met, of all the Eldar, Nome, that is wisdom, in the language of that people, and after him they named his folk Nomen, the wise.
So yeah, Beor, he becomes straight up, he's like taken with Felagund right away. He becomes a vassal of King Felagund. And the House of Beor are loyal to the House of Finarfin ever after.
What a great way to meet.
Instant friends.
Instant friends right there.
Through music, man. Music brings people together.
Yeah, it does. And that brings us up to this week's Minturd.
Yeah, you know what else brings people together?
Minturd.
Minnesota
Minturds.
Tolkien radio drama.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
You betcha.
You betcha.
Gosh darn it, you betcha.
But this Minturd is about basically what we just, this is a Minnesota reimagining of what we just read from the
Yeah.
Silmarillion.
Yeah, we hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, strap in, guys. Here we go.
Woohoo!
It was in the dawn of the 4th century of the First Age that Finrod Felagund went on a hunting trip with the sons of Feanor, his cousins. After a long expedition, Finrod grew weary. He had a very extended goodbye ritual with his cousins and set off on his own down the dwarf road.
Oh, geez. That sure was a great hunting trip. I sure do love going up north for the weekend.
Finrod hummed to himself as he journeyed.
Oh, yeah. I love my cousins, but they can be, a little bit much. You know what I mean? Going on and on about those gosh darn Silmarils. Yeah. Well, I better make my way on home here. Yepers, here I go now, hey.
Finrod made his way down into Assyrian. He took in the beauty of the land.
Oh, geez. Assyrian really is a tater tot and a whole different hot dish. God, that sure is pretty.
Before long night fell, but Finrod continued his journey. He was making his way through the forest when he thought he heard voices on the night air.
Oh, yeah. That definitely is somebody talking, hey. I better take a look, you know what I mean?
Finrod used his elven stealth skill to sneak up toward the sound. It was definitely voices. Finrod listened.
Hey!
We finally made it!
Oh, we made it over here! Valerian! Over here!
They were a group of what did not appear to be elves, nor dwarves. Finrod was astonished. He listened to them. They spoke strangely, but Felagund understood their meaning.
Hey, we finally made it, yous guys. Things is finally looking up.
Over here.
Bada bing.
Hey, we finally made it to Balerion over here. No more of those mooks over there. Bada bing.
Finrod was confused by the term mook. He wondered out loud to himself.
The heck is a mook, hey?
Finrod continued to listen as the apparent leader continued to speak.
Hey, listen up over here, yous guys. Tonight, we's gonna party, eh?
Yeah.
Bada bing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Finrod watched as they began to sing and dance around their fire. The party went on for some time. Their leader played on a crudely fashioned harp as they danced.
Oh, geez. These gotta be those second-born. Oh, yeah, you betcha. These people are pretty darn cool, hey?
Finrod watched from the darkness. Love for these strange people grew in his heart. Finally, the part winded down, and they began to fall asleep one by one.
Oh, for cute. They all fell off to sleep. Let me get a little closer, hey?
Finrod moved from the darkness and approached the dying fire. He sat down and took up the harp and began to play. Beautiful music filled the night air. Slowly, all of the men began to stir in their sleep. They finally all woke up. They sat and listened to the music. It was unlike anything they had ever heard. Finrod began to sing as he played.
Ooh, ooh.
The men sat silent and still as stone. They each at first thought they were in some kind of dream. When Finrod sang, the words were strange to the men, but they understood their meaning.
Mama, take this badge off of me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. And I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door.
Finrod sang for them. They were dumbfounded by the combination of beautiful music and the poetry of the lyrics. They were unlike anything they had ever heard.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
As Finrod finished the second verse, something amazing happened. The men began to sing along. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. 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 By the time the song concluded, everyone had tears in their eyes. Before long, the leader stood up and spoke.
That was the most beautiful freaking thing I ever heard. Who the hell is this guy anyways?
Oh, yeah there. I'm Finrod, son of Finarfin. I'm a Noldo of the West.
Oh, hey, it's good to meet yous over here. I'm Bayo. How you doing? Me and my buddies here, we come from off the east. We had to get away from that dark one, that stupid gavoon.
Oh, yeah, you are the second born, I bet, hey. You know what that means. We are kin. Oh, yeah, you betcha.
Oh, yeah? Oh, hey, that's pretty freaking cool, eh?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to take care of you guys now, hey. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about Beleriand culture.
And taught them, he did. He taught them about many things. He taught them to fish.
And if you're trying to go for the walleye, the best thing you can do is get yourself some big old suckers, like right here.
Hey, that's a leech.
Yeah, this is a sucker, hey. You use these bad boys and you'll be catching yourself a walleye in no time. Maybe even a northern or two. Some crappies, maybe? You know what I mean?
He taught them to play traditional games like Duck, Duck, Grey Duck. But what they loved most was cribbage.
Oh, hey, what are all these little pegs and cards for over here? This tiny little board with all these little holes? Seems kind of wackadoo.
Oh, yeah, no. This is a game played by my people for many generations. It's called cribbage. It's real fun, hey?
Finrod taught them the slightly complicated rules of the game cribbage. The men loved it. They played late into the night.
15-2, 15-4, and there ain't no more. Looks like I win.
Oh, hey, we gotta get a rematch over here.
He taught them about traditional cuisine.
Oh, okay now. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make a traditional tater tot hot dish.
Hey, tater tot what now over here?
Finrod showed them how to make the strange dish. He started with all the ingredients.
All right, you guys, here's what you'll be needing.
Finrod brought out a paper bag with the words Cub Foods on the side.
You got your 3 cans of Green Giant green beans, 2 cans of Campbell's cream of mushroom, an onion, some ground beef. You can use venison too. God, that's good. And of course, tater tots and cheese.
Well, hey, what's a tater tot over here?
Finrod showed them how to layer the ingredients into a pan. And after baking it at 350 degrees for 45 minutes, dinner was served. They had a great feast. Finrod and the men sat back with full bellies. Beor and Finrod cracked a couple of cans of Northeast and sat with their arms around each other.
Oh, hey, that was the greatest meal I ever freaking had over here. What better than the best freaking gabagool I've ever had?
Oh yeah, you freaking betcha.
Finrod even began to influence their speech.
Now, instead of saying, hey, and oh, try saying, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was really good, hey. Now try this one. You betcha.
You betcha.
betcha.
You
betcha.
Betcha.
You betcha.
Betcha.
Now try them together, hey.
Oh, yeah. You betcha. Oh, yeah. You betcha. From then on, the men adopted the speech of the region and spoke that way from then on. Finrod became great friends with the men, and they took him for their lord. They sang the song that Felgen taught them every night before they took to rest. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, friends, that was your Minturd for the day. Thank you very much.
Hey.
That was a kind of interesting one. We had East Coast accents in there.
An attempted
East Coast accent.
Yeah, none of us are from the East.
No, that's what you sound like to us, though, from the Midwest. But yeah, sorry. Hopefully nobody was offended by that.
All in good fun.
All in good fun. We make fun of ourselves here, so we were making fun of East Coast accents, too. You know, why not?
It's all in good fun.
Yeah, we love it. I've never been there, but I'm sure it's great.
So let's continue through these houses, shall we?
Yeah, let's do a rundown of all the houses. Let's start with the first to enter Beleriand, the House of Beor.
So the House of Beor, let's start with some of their physical descriptions. They're known for their dark hair, brown eyes, and they're pale to swarthy, quote-unquote, skin tones.
Yes, and swarthy is defined as someone with dark skin. So to all the chagrin of all the super racist Tolkien fans out there, some of these dudes had darker skin.
Yeah, I mean, it's even quoted earlier in one of the excerpts we did.
Yeah.
Swarthy is the word that Tolkien used.
Yeah. But yeah, the House of Beor is smaller than the House of Hador, which is the other faction of the Northern group. Let's get into the origins and lineage of the House of Beor.
So the House of Beor descended from the lesser group of the Northern group of Atani that left Hildorian. And they were led through a pass in the Blue Mountains by Balan, also known as Beor.
They were really poor and ill-equipped. There were about 2,000 men, and that was the original group that made it through to Beleriand.
Yeah, they had no beasts of burden or livestock of any kind with them, so it was literally like them with what they can carry on their backs.
Yep. So let's get into some famous members of the House of Beor. Let's start with Beor the Old.
Beor himself. So Beor, he's the namesake. He's led his people over the Blue Mountains into Beleriand, and eventually became the vassal of King Finrod Felagund.
Yeah, and he lived in straight up Nargothrond until the end of his life in 355 of the First Age, at age 93, hence the name, Beor the Old.
Is that actually old for men of this time?
Yes, this is very old for men of this time. Yes.
Oh, okay. So when did the Druedain come about with their long lives?
That was the Second Age.
That was a gift from Iluvatar, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And that happens in the Second Age, which will be the end of this episode.
So we'll get into that in our next episode.
Next week, yeah.
So let's talk about another famous member of the House of Beor, Barahir.
Yeah, Barahir rules. He's a great captain of war. He famously led a nearly suicidal charge to save King Felagund during the Dagor Bracolach.
Yeah, Felagund then swore an oath of loyalty to Barahir and his kin, and gave Barahir his own ring as sort of a symbol of that oath.
Yeah, Ring of Barahir. Barahir was famously killed at night in his camp by orcs, and they severed the hand that bore the ring and took it with them.
But it is famously later retrieved by his son, Beren.
This seems to be a recurring theme in Tolkien, where somebody loses part of their hand or finger.
Yeah.
And somebody claims the ring they were
There's
wearing.
There's a lot of maiming going on.
Yeah, nobody just takes it off. They're just like, you're going to lose a hand.
Yeah. So we talk about Beren a little bit. Let's get into Beren or Camion, one of the most famous of the Edain friggin' ever.
So Beren famously fell in love with Luthien Tinuviel of Doriath, and she and him recovered a Silmaril from Morgoth's crown.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, Beren and Luthien both die as a result. And through a really complicated series of events that we're not going to get into here, they were allowed to return to life and live as mortals in Osirian.
So Beren, very important member of that house.
Of course.
There's also Dior, the only son of Beren and Luthien. He was the heir of Thingol as well as the heir of Beor.
Yeah, he actually reclaimed Doriath after its original sacking. He went back a couple years later and reclaimed it. And he inherited the Nauglamir with the Silmaril in it after the death of his parents.
Yeah, but unfortunately Dior was eventually slain in the second sacking of Doriath. Really the final sacking.
Can I ask, how do we define sacking?
When you basically go in, steal everything you can, enslave everybody, and steal anything worth value.
Yeah, someone invades like a castle.
But you don't take the land; you just take the stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean you took the city. You just it is no longer a threat anymore. Yeah,
been sacked.
Yeah,
it's been sacked. It just sounds funny.
Yeah, because cities get sacked all the time, right? But they go on being cities later. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Dior, during the sacking, he refused to yield the Silmaril to the sons of Feanor, the ones doing the sacking, and so essentially, the sons of Feanor attacked Doriath and reclaimed it.
Oh, Dior actually, and he actually kills Celegorm in this whole sortie, which is cool. He kills that asshole Celegorm before he dies.
And then his sons, Elred and Elrin, are kidnapped by the sons of Feanor and left to die in the forest by Celegorm's followers. And unfortunately, these boys were never found.
In yet another Tolkien mystery. Doo-doo.
What happened to those boys? They did actually go back to search for them, didn't they? They never found them.
Maedhros did. Yeah, Maedhros felt really bad, and a lot of people think that's why they didn't kill Elrond and Elros when they found them.
Oh, later
because
on,
they felt
learned
bad.
their lesson.
Yeah.
So let's talk about another famous member of the House of Beor, Elwing, daughter of Dior.
Yeah, of course. Elwing, very important. She escaped the second kinslaying with the Silmaril, and she brought it to the mouths of Sirion.
And there is where she met and fell in love with Eorendil, and they were married.
Yeah. She eventually threw herself into the sea during the third and final kinslaying.
God.
It's funny, she survived 2 kinslayings. That's wild.
That's terrible.
That's wild as shit. It's kind of like if you had, were born at the specific time where you got to live through World War I and II.
Kind of like that guy who got to witness the dropping of both atomic bombs.
Yeah, that dude, yeah.
I feel like I'd want to throw myself into the sea after that too.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of bad faith in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For real. With the Sons of Fëanor, they attacked the refugee camp at the mouth of Sirion looking for the Silmaril, but she throws herself into the sea and is borne up into history.
Yeah, very famous member of the house. Let's talk about another famous lady of the House of Beor, the Lady Morwen Eladwin.
Yes, she's the daughter of Baragon, the Lord of Ladros, and she married Hurin, the Lord of Dorloman.
And she's famously the mother of Turin Turambar and Nienor, and her family was cursed by Morgoth, which culminates in the tragedy that we know as the Children of Hurin.
Yeah, fun fact, she was considered to be the most beautiful mortal woman of the First Age.
I'm guessing she still wouldn't win any contests against elves, though.
I don't think any human would.
Yeah, no human has that ability.
Yeah. Let's get into the language of the House of Beor. We talked about it a little bit, but let's get into the real nitty-gritty.
Yeah, so the language of the northern group was known as Taliska.
Taliska, yeah.
Taliska.
Yeah. And Taliska was sundered into 2 different dialects during the time that they were both the greater and the lesser group, where they were dwelling by the Sea of Rune.
So the lesser group, the group of Beor, became friendly with the Avari elves of that region.
Yeah, this influenced the shit out of their language. The lesser group adopted many elvish words and devices.
Yeah, and when the greater group sailed across the Sea of Rune and met with the lesser, they could only understand each other with great difficulty.
Yeah, I figure this is similar to like how an American might have trouble understanding someone who speaks English but from like Africa or, South America, something like that, And we got a excerpt here from History of Middle-earth, Volume 12, Peoples of Middle-earth, The Etani and Their Languages by Joel.
The Elvish lore masters were of opinion that both languages were descended from one that had diverged, owing to some division of the people that had spoken it, in the First Age. Though that time might well have been less, and change quickened by a mingling of peoples, for the language of Hador was apparently less changed and more uniform in style, whereas the language of Beor contained many elements that were alien in character.
Yeah. While Taliska was the native language of the House of Beor, they eventually mostly used Sindarin after settling in Beleriand.
So let's move on from language to some of the known dwellings of the House of Beor. So they were largely on the southwest shores of the Sea of Ruin.
Yeah, and then they made their way into Estolad, and of course Dorthonion.
Yeah, the seat of power there was named the Lord of Ladros.
Yeah, in the city of Ladros and Dorthonion, yeah. We also had some Beorians living in Dorloman under Hurin and Morwen, of course.
And some in Brethil, too.
Yeah, and also some in Brethil.
Can I just say that all of these places, just by their names, sound super cool?
I know. It's just, don't you want to go to every one of these places?
Yes, like in order, backpacking across Middle-earth.
Yeah, that would be so fun.
I think it's time for another Trev check, guys.
I agree. Let's do it.
So
what do you got?
We specifically, let's stick to the House of Beor here, but I'm curious. We talked about a ring earlier. Are there any heirlooms or noteworthy items that survive the House of Beor into the later ages?
Yes. One of them is the ring you mentioned that we talked about earlier, the Ring of Barahir.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was given to Felagund, to Barahir by Felagund in the First Age. It became an heirloom of the Kings of Numenor later, and later, the Lords of Endunier.
Yeah, it's even worn by Aragorn famously in the Third Age as a symbol of his claim to be the heir of Isildur.
Yeah, because he is a descendant of the House of Beor and Barahir.
Do you guys know the origin of this ring?
It was made in Valinor. It's the sigil of Finarfin's house. Oh. So it was probably given to Felagund when he became of age or something like that, I'm assuming.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, rings are cool and all, but what about weapons? They had to have some cool fighting weapons.
Oh yeah, they are a warlike people when they have to be, and
Naturally,
of course,
as all men are.
yes, all men tend to. The bow of Bregor. He is the second Lord of Ladros. His name Bregor.
Yeah, and it must have been a pretty sick, powerful bow because it ended up getting passed down as an heirloom by the Edain, and it even got brought to Numenor eventually and remained an heirloom of the King of Numenor until the fall of Numenor near the end of the Second Age. We have an excerpt here from the History of Middle-earth series, Volume 12, People of Middle-earth, the Ytani, and Their Languages, read by Trever.
There were fair-haired men and women among the folk of Beor, but most of them had brown hair, going usually with brown eyes, and many were less fair in skin, some indeed being swarthy. Men as tall as the folk of Hador were rare among them, and most were broader and more heavy in build. In association with the Eldar, especially with the followers of King Finrod, they became as enhanced in arts and manners as the folk of Hador. But if these surpassed them in swiftness of mind and body, in daring and noble generosity, the folk of Beor were more steadfast in endurance of hardship and sorrow, slow to tears or to laughter. Their fortitude needed no hope to sustain it.
Arty folk.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, from the horse's mouth, there you go again. Some of them had darker skin.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're good people that existed in Tolkien and had dark skin. Look at that.
What do you know?
What do you know?
I do just really love this last this last part where it says their fortitude needed no hope to sustain it.
I love that.
It's like such a powerful phrase just about how
A race
That's
of people
like
that'll just keep on going.
And that's evident in Morwen's character most, I think, is her resilience to all the horrible shit that's happening to her. And she keeps her hand very close to her. So let's get into the next house, the second house to enter Beleriand, the House of Haleth, also known as the Halidin.
So these folks were also had dark features, and they were small in stature compared to the other two houses. And they were descendants of the original southern group of Ytani that had left Hildorian.
Yeah, remember that original southern group that we said stays intact the whole time? Bada bing, as they'd say. This is the House of Haleth.
Yeah, when they entered Osiriand, there was some strife among them, but otherwise they were pretty true to themselves.
Yeah, they also had no leader, which we'll talk about here in a second. Let's talk about their language first, though.
So they speak a language called Halidin, and it is completely alien to the other two houses of the Edain. The Halidin, they kept their language in use, and they eventually adopted Sindarin to communicate with their allies, but most did not speak it well, and some not at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were very, they used Sindarin when they had to. That was pretty much it.
I find it super interesting that it's like between the north and south, right? That's that language divide. But it's not even like dialects, because the north had it's
a completely different language.
It's a totally different language.
Yeah, it's not a dialect. Yeah, it's a completely different language. Let's get into some famous members of the House of Haleth, because there's a few cool ones. So let's get right into our first one. Haldad. This is the leader of the house when they dwelt in southern Thargalion.
Yeah, the Halidin originally had no single leader, but war with the orcs of the Blue Mountains solidified Haldad's leadership during this time.
Yeah, out of necessity, they took a leader, you know. But he was actually killed in a sortie after the Halidin, they ran out of food during a siege. And he was killed trying to probably get food. I don't know.
So next famous leader we have is Haleth, who is the namesake of the House of Haleth, and she's actually the daughter of Haldad, the character we just spoke of. And after Haldad had died in that sortie we mentioned, this is when Haleth takes up leadership, and her brother also eventually gets killed as well.
Yep.
Her whole family just gets slaughtered by orcs.
Yeah, she was known as a vicious warrior. She helped keep her people alive for 7 days during a siege. They were eventually rescued. The siege was broken by Caranthir, because Thargalion was his region.
Yeah, but ultimately Haleth was beloved by her people, and she was buried in the Howden Arwen, which is called the Lady Barrow.
Mm-hmm. Let's get into an honorable mention for another House of Haleth person here. Brandir, also known as Brandir the Lame.
The lame? Why the lame?
He actually had a...
He had like a birth defect. He had like a club foot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a disability.
Yeah. But yeah, he helped Turin during his whole thing. He nursed Turin back to health. He was a really good healer and a really just guy. And he was killed over a misunderstanding, if you remember. Pretty sad.
So some of the known dwellings of the House of Haleth, or the Haladin. Beleriand, they were known to live in Osirian, Thargelion, and Brethel.
Yeah, and in Middle-earth, the White Mountains, Eriador, and Dunland.
All right, boys. Time for another Trev check.
Sounds good.
Lay it on us.
Okay, so you guys had mentioned earlier the house is named after their leader, Haleth.
Mm-hmm.
And you had said that Brandir helped lead and whatnot. Were there any other significant leaders or kings?
Well, kings specifically, no. They never bowed to a king. They refused to bow to Caranthir.
Yeah, even when he saved them.
Yeah, he fucking saved their ass and was like, you can live in Thargelion, all you have to do is bend the knee to me. And they're like, fuck yourself. And they just left.
Yeah,
Come
wasn't
outta
that
here.
when Haleth was like, where are Haldad and my brother, Hal something or else? Caranthir was confused why they would turn down the offer.
Yeah.
He was like, do you love the orcs or something or like that? Or?
Oh, no, that's when they're talking to Thingol later on in the story. And he says, and she's like, do you think I'd be, because they're like, are you friend of the orcs?
Yes.
And they're like, do you think I'd be friends with people that killed my mom and my father and mother? You must be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool story.
She's badass and she has some really cool shit that she does.
Yeah, Haleth is great.
So if they had no kings, did they have like a kingdom, or where did they go?
They lived in Brethil mostly as free men. It's a forest in Beleriand, under the condition that they keep safe the crossings of the Taglin for travel and whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean this arrangement to be able to live in Brethil was kind of arranged by King Finrod, but still, nonetheless, they were free people. They didn't worship King Finrod. They didn't worship King Thingol. They didn't take anyone.
They're technically in Thingol's land, but he allows them to live there to protect the river crossing.
Yeah.
Hold on, are you saying that he's almost like their landlord?
In a way. In a way.
I guess you could put it like
that. Yeah,
that.
you could kind of put it that way.
They pay their rent in safety.
Yeah,
right?
they don't necessarily bow to him, but they their answer to him.
It's an agreement.
Yeah. Transactional.
Yeah, but they were hardy folks, and the Green Elves of Osirian were actually afraid of them and kept their distance when they dwelt in that area. And they were cool with the Druedain. That's another really cool thing about the House of Haleth.
Yeah.
They were cool with the Druedain, and they followed the Druedain. The Druedain followed them into Beleriand. We actually have an excerpt here from the History of Middle-earth, Volume 12, Peoples of Middle-earth of Dwarves and Men, read by Danny.
They did not willingly adopt new things or customs, and retained many practices that seemed strange to the Eldar and other Atani, whom they had few dealings with except in war. Nonetheless, they were esteemed as loyal allies and redoubtable soldiers, though the companies that they sent to battle beyond their borders were small. For they were and remained to their end a small people, chiefly concerned to protect their own woodlands. They excelled in forest warfare. Indeed, for long, even those orcs specially trained for this dared not set foot near their borders. One of the strange practices spoken of, that many of their women were warriors, though a few of them went abroad to fight in great battles. This custom was evidently ancient, for their chieftainess Haleth had been a renowned Amazon with a picked bodyguard of women.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, she had a whole
bunch of Amazonians.
Yeah, a bunch of badass women around her. Yeah, I thought that was a cool excerpt about the House of Haleth, and it mentions the bodyguard of women, which I thought was really cool.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty unique. You don't see much of that in Tolkien other places.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's super unique. There's like even all of the fellowship is dudes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
a sausage fest.
It's a sausage fest, man.
Let's get into the last house. Probably the most important of them, really.
Yeah, that would be the House of Hador.
Yes. Let's get into some physical descriptions of the House of Hador.
Yeah, so people of the House of Hador are generally the tallest of the Edain, of the three houses. They're also usually light-skinned, blue-eyed, and mostly golden-haired.
Yeah. The House of Hador originally descends from the greater group of the northern group of the Edain, and for a time they were led by Merrick, and that led them to be known as the House of Merrick before entering Beleriand.
So they crossed into Beleriand in 3 separate hosts, and each host consisted of around 200 adults.
2,000.
Excuse me, 2,000, thank you. And they were most numerous. They were the most numerous of the 3 houses of the Edain.
Yeah, and they were the best equipped, and they were friggin' armed as well. And they had beasts of burden, livestock, and horses, and chickens, and cows, and all kinds of things.
Yeah, remember how we talked about some of the other houses just came over with what they could carry on their backs?
Yeah, not these guys. They were prepared for this journey.
Yeah, this is like a civilization moving around.
Yeah.
So the Green Elves at the forest at the foot of the Blue Mountains there, they were, again, also afraid of these men too as they came over the mountain.
Yeah, they're like, who the fuck?
And they essentially, when they came in contact with them, they just kind of sent the men over to Estelad as they did with the House of Beor.
Yeah, it's like them weirdos are living up in Estelad. Go live with them.
Yeah, just go over by those other weird men.
Are the second born really that scary?
I guess.
The elves of Osirian are relatively timid, I think.
Yeah, they're kind of closed off. Yeah, that's why Baron and Luthien go there to live the rest of their life out, because like men don't really go through Osirian all that much.
Relative peace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into the loyalties of the House of Hador.
Yeah, so Hador's folk were generally loyal to Fingolfin and his sons, Fingon and Turgon.
Yeah, the House of Finarfin they love.
Yeah, so they essentially followed whoever the current High King was, right?
Yep, that was their king, whoever the High King was. Famous members. Let's start with Merrick, the namesake of the original house.
Yeah, so Merrick was the leader of the house when they migrated into Beleriand, and he's essentially the great-grandfather of Hador. And Merrick brought his people to dwell in the land of Estelad with the House of Beor.
Yeah, let's talk about his great-grandson, Hador. He was known as Lorindal, the Golden-Haired.
Yeah, and he was the first lord of the region of Dorloman in the north. And the folk of Merrick dealt little with Fingolfin's people, since Malek, son of Merrick, who was beloved by Fingolfin.
Yeah, so like they hadn't, for a couple generations, hadn't dealt with Fingolfin's people much. And then Hador shows up again, and he enters the halls of Fingolfin and greeted as a friend.
And Fingolfin grants Hador the fiefdom of Dorloman, and Merrick's people became known as the House of Hador.
Yeah. Let's talk about another one, more tragic character. Oh no, this is never mind. A tragic. No, this one's tragic too.
not as much as his brother, but Huor.
Huor, the son of Galdor. He spent some of his youth in the kingdom of Gondolin with his brother Hurin.
Yeah, and Huor was best known for fathering Tuor, and also for making a prophecy to Turgon at the Battle of Unnumbered Tears.
Yeah, very important. He's actually prophesizing the fucking future here, and we got that teeny little excerpt from Joel.
This I say to you, Lord, with the eyes of death, though we part here forever, and I shall not look on your white walls again, from you and from me a new star shall arise. Farewell.
And Huor was actually shot through the eye with an arrow shortly after saying that at the Battle of Unnumbered Tears.
Pretty brutal death.
Yeah.
Through the eye.
Yeah.
I wonder if he saw it coming.
Not quite as tragic as what happened to his brother and his brother's family.
Yeah, let's get into his brother Hurin. He's the eldest son of Galdor and the final Lord of Dorloman.
Yeah, if that's any indicator of where things are going here.
Yeah.
So Hurin is regarded as the greatest warrior of the Edain in the elder days. He was also one of the shortest to him, right? He was a relatively short.
Yeah, he's shorter in stature than most of the men of Hador. Yeah. He's best known for being captured by Morgoth and tormented for years.
Yeah, Morgoth laid a curse on Hurin and his kin, and made Hurin watch as the curse played out throughout his children's lives.
Yeah, and that's the story of the children of Hurin. We've covered it in the Turin episode, and we will cover it in the future, I'm sure. But it's a great book. Check it out.
The tragedy. Hurin essentially ends the story by committing suicide, jumping into the Great Sea in the year 502 of the First Age.
Yeah. Let's talk about even more tragedy. Turin Turambar, Hurin's son. He's born in 464 of the First Age, and he is known as by far the most tragic character in Tolkien. And he is my favorite character, and we've discussed him at length in a few different episodes.
Oh yeah, go back and check out the Turin Turambar episodes.
And we definitely don't have any big plans to talk about him in the future.
None at all.
None at all.
Yeah, just forget about it.
So yeah, never again. Turin, to put his life in a nutshell, he led a cursed life and included, let's go, speed round, guys.
Okay, we're going to really condense this.
Yep.
So his father never returned home from war, the death of his younger sister.
He fled his homeland to avoid slavery and thraldom. He alienated his adopted father, Thingol, after accidentally killing one of his advisors.
Yeah, he also accidentally kills his best friend, Beleg Cuthalion. And the worst of all, he eventually, unwittingly, ends up marrying his sister and impregnating her.
Yeah, and this revelation results in the death of both of them in suicide in the year 499 of the First Age.
Yeah, the revelation of the happiest relationship that they've ever had, who they thought was their loves of their lives, were actually their sister and brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be one of the most life-shattering things to ever happen to anyone. Like, horrible.
Is there a specific reason why Morgoth curses Turin?
Yes.
Yes, he won't tell him where Gondolin is.
And he
Right, and
mocks him.
that's the city that nobody can find. But
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Hurin spent his a few years there when he was younger and got to leave, and
Not many people get that.
nobody really.
Nobody,
Yeah.
yeah.
Rare opportunity.
Yeah.
But
Let's talk about another
Turin's cousin.
Yeah, Turin's cousin fares a little better. He's the son of Huor, the guy that got shot through the eye.
His name is Tuor.
His name is Tuor, yes. And after the death of his parents, he was enslaved by Easterlings. But he eventually found his way to Gondolin and lived there.
So while in Gondolin, Tuor marries Idril, daughter of Turgon. And he also led a small group of refugees from Gondolin after its fall to the mouth of Sirion. And from there he eventually sets sail, trying to sail to Valinor, where he is never heard from again.
Yeah, there's no record if he made it outside some speculation that he might have made it to Tol Eressëa and dwelt there with the Eldar until the end of his days. But ultimately, it remains a Tolkien mystery.
A Tolkien mystery.
I'm noticing a lot of H and T names in these earlier days.
Yes.
There's some good themes here.
Yeah, it's a tradition of the Edain to use alliterative names. I just read that in one of the things about their language the other day.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with names like Turin, Turambar.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So let's talk about another member of the house, possibly one of the most famous members of this house, one of the most famous figures in First Age history of all time.
All time. Maybe the GOAT. Maybe the greatest of all time.
Could be the GOAT.
It's Eärendil.
Eärendil the Mariner.
Yeah, and he's the product of the second wedding of elves and men.
Yeah, he's known as one of the greatest heroes in all of Tolkien, and he actually did successfully sail to Valinor with the help of his Silmaril and his wife, Elwing, where he begged for the Valar to intervene on the part of the two Kindreds, basically, in the war that had been going on with Morgoth.
Yeah, because he is both. He's elf and man, so
Yeah.
he could speak for both of the kindreds.
He could ask for both.
Yeah. And the result of this was a 42-year-long conflict that destroyed Beleriand and ended the First Age.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How did the Silmaril help him get to Valinor?
There's a bunch of enchantments and stuff that surround you have to there's mountains, the Pelori they call them, that you have to sail around.
Right.
And it's really treacherous waters and it's hard to do.
Yeah, the waters there are actually cursed, so you're supposed to get lost and not be able to find your way to shore.
Yeah.
But he essentially used the Silmaril as, imagine Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah, to cut through the bullshit.
Quite literally.
You just cut through the bullshit.
Literally
with
what
it.
he did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that would you say that probably made him impervious to the negative effects of the sea? Like he probably was.
Oh
able
yeah,
to just go right through?
and then also he is
the greatest most
mariner.
talented mariner.
Yeah, and he's in a ship made by Círdan as well.
So yeah, he's got every boon he needs to get
he's like
there.
the greatest mariner in a fantastic ship made by the best shipwright ever.
Yeah,
and he's got a Silmaril to help guide him.
Yeah,
and Elwing.
Círdan shafted, by the way.
Círdan
shafted.
I love how that was like a consensus shafted. Yes.
Shafted.
So other famous members of the House of Hador, Elrond and Elros, they get their own section together.
Yeah, so these are the two sons of Eärendil and Elwing, and they were originally kidnapped by the sons of Fëanor after the third and final kinslaying, but Maglor loved them enough as a father and decided to raise them and teach them.
Yeah, he taught them a bunch of stuff, and then seemingly let them go, because they end up in Lindon later on, but that never really says when they get let go. But they were both given the choice to be either the race of men or the Eldar, because they were descended from both.
Yeah, they were half elf, half man, so they were the first to be given the choice between essentially living as a man or living as an elf.
Yeah.
And as we know, Elrond famously chose to live as an elf, and he became one of the greatest elven lore masters of all time and goes to live on for thousands and thousands of years. And then Elros chose to be the race of men. He became the first king of Numenor, but he died after, what was it, a couple hundred years?
No, he lived hella long time. He lived like nearly 500 years, I think.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, his reign was like absurdly long.
I'm curious, before they made the choice, like, did this change their physiology at all?
Not really.
Would that have meant that, like, Elros, like, his ears rounded out or something?
I guess, actually, technically, his men's ears did round out.
Oh, wait a second. Are elves actually stated to have pointed ears
Yes.
in Tolkien?
That's actually not true.
No?
It's never really specifically said. I was watching a video about this because people were complaining about pointy ears in the Rings of Power series, and somebody did a deep dive on it.
Oh.
And it's kind of a traditional
elf
characteristic,
thing
but
in our real world, but it's not specifically.
yeah.
Interesting.
I did not know that.
And
You
like
just busted that wide open.
hobbits also never specifically says they have pointy ears as well.
God damn, my mind just got blown.
Yeah, it's kind of like when it got blown open for me when I heard that the Druedain didn't have beards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they can't grow beards because they have the elf blood in them.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
So no elves would have a beard either.
except for Círdan, the motherfucking
Except for
shipwright,
Círdan.
Shafted.
Of course.
shafted.
Shafted.
So let's talk a little bit more about that language, Taliska.
Yeah, so the House of Hador spoke a dialect of Taliska, and it was different from the dialect of the House of Beor, which had the Elvish influence, whereas the House of Hador did not.
Yeah, it remained relatively unchanged from its earlier, more mannish version. And this is what we would call, what we've coined for this podcast, Hadorian Taliska. And that was spoken all the way to the end of the First Age with the House of Hador.
Yeah, and they brought the language with them to Numenor, where it eventually evolved into the language of Adunaic.
Yeah.
So you could essentially say that Hadorian Taliska is considered to be the
Ancient Edunaic.
ancient Adunaic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some known dwellings of the House of Hador. Estolad, we talked about that. And Hithlam and Dorloman specifically, which is where the seat of their power was.
All right, guys. I'm going to pull a Trev check here
Do it.
for these guys here in the House of Hador. So, with Tuor leaving for Valinor, never being heard from again, did he leave any heirlooms or anything behind for the House of Hador?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did. It's actually a really cool artifact here called the Axe of Tuor.
Oh, named after himself.
Yeah. Tuor actually preferred a battle axe to any sword, and he lived in fucking Gondolin. So they had the best swords friggin' ever.
And he
And
still,
preferred the axe. And that leads me to believe, like, what is an axe made by the Gondolindrum like?
Right, yeah.
Holy shit, yeah.
Gonna be
that's
like
gotta
the
be a
most
really
durable
cool,
axe.
Really cool axe. I
Yeah.
wonder if it glows.
I wonder.
That'd be cool shit.
I wonder. But yeah, that name, that he famously wielded was called Dramborleg in the Fall of Gondolin.
Yeah, and Dramberleg means thunder sharp in Gnomish, which is an early version of Quenya.
Yep. It survived with him. It was taken to Numenor as an heirloom of the king.
Yeah, so apparently in the Amazon show,
The much loathed.
the much loathed Amazon show, apparently you can actually see Dramberleg in Tar Palantir's tower. Apparently they decided to go through the effort of putting in little super specific Easter eggs like that, but they didn't get good writing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. They get really cool little Easter eggs, but they just skimped out on the actual fucking plot.
Yeah. I wonder if the Bow of Bregor was in there.
That'd be
Can we
cool.
talk about that?
Can I just say that I love that there's a bow that's important and not just like a sword, because you mostly hear about swords.
Yeah. No, the Bow of Bregor, yeah, must have
That's
been
really cool.
must have been pretty fucking sick.
Okay, I'd like to shift gears and go back to Turin, since he was like
Sure. Very important member of the house.
super
Yeah.
cursed, had a terrible life. Did he have any kind of luck at all? Was there any positive force in his life?
Well, he did have one stroke of luck in that he was fucking dripped out. He had
Oh yeah,
really good gear.
he had the best gear.
He was the owner of what was called the Dragon Helm of Dorloman, which was fucking awesome.
Sometimes called the Helm of Hador.
Sometimes, and this was a dwarven helmet that it shielded the wearer from wounds and dragonfire by means of magical dwarf runes on the helm. So you could never be wounded wearing this helmet.
That sounds like a great How can you not be wounded from just a helmet?
But Telkar had some magic shit. I don't know.
It's wild shit. So this helmet has a long and rich history. It was made by the dwarfsmith Telkar of Nargrad sometime after the Dagor Aglareb in First Age 260.
Yeah, we're talking early First Age.
Early
here.
First Age. And it was originally made for Azagal, the king, the dwarven king of Nargrad.
Yeah, that dude gets got at the Nearnath, right? He gifted it to his buddy Maedros. You know, Maedros was really
Tight with the dwarves.
Tight with the dwarf, son of Feanor. And then Maedros gave it to his cousin and best friend, Fingon.
And eventually Fingon gave it as a present to Hador when Hador was made Lord of Dor-Lomin in 416 of the First Age.
How did this helmet fit so many people?
I don't know, man.
Because they're all huge. The reason why the elves keep giving it to people is because no elf can. It says that no elf could wear this in battle. It's that heavy. It's that bulky.
It's just
Dang.
too big.
That only really big dudes can wear it. And that's why Hurin doesn't wear it, because he's a smaller dude. And then he's also too proud to wear a helmet.
How does being too proud to wear a helmet work?
Because he likes to get up close and dirty, man.
He wants you to see his angry ass face
Yeah,
as
he wants
he
to-
strangles
As he
you.
fucking, guts you with an axe. Yeah.
So, all right, it sounds like this helmet being handed down to so many people. Is Turambar the last one to have it?
It is actually buried with Turambar in the year 499 of the First Age.
So he gets buried with the one piece of luck he had.
Yeah, he gets to hold on to that.
Consolation prize.
Yeah. We got a quote from the Silmarillion, chapter 17, of the coming of men into the West, and Joel's going to read it.
Now Hador Lorendal, son of Hathal, son of Magor, son of Malek, Aradan, entered the household of Fingolfin in his youth, and he was loved by the king. Fingolfin therefore gave to him the lordship of Dor-Lomin, and into that land he gathered most of the people of his kin, and became the mightiest of the chieftains of the Edain. In his house only the elven tongue was spoken, but their own speech was not forgotten, and from it came the common tongue of Numenor.
Yeah. So that's about it for the House of Hador.
And that's about it that we have for the three houses of the Edain, the High Men.
Yeah. All right. No, the Highmen would be Numenor. These are still Loman, I guess.
Okay, Loman.
But let's talk about some other dudes from the First Age here.
Other men that are not the Edain.
Yeah. Let's talk about Easterlings. There's a decent amount of Easterlings in the First Age.
In the movies, we only really see Easterlings as the enemy, right?
Mhm.
Correct.
Right.
In the Third Age. So they come.
Right.
I'm assuming they come a long way.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, they come from various parts of the East. Easterling is kind of a catch-all term for anybody that comes out of the East. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, anyone that crossed the Blue Mountains into Beleriand after the Edain did.
Yep, is known as an Easterling.
And Easterlings were often called the swarthy men or the incomers by the House of Hador. Seems a little derogatory, but you know.
They entered Beleriand in the year 463 of the First Age. And some were just everyday innocent dudes in families, just not necessarily evil, just looking for better lands to settle, because the East is pretty shitty out there. So Easterlings are always trying to come over to more fertile lands. But many of them were secretly in the service of Morgoth. So not all, but many.
Yeah, and so these Easterlings of the First Age, they're famously split into two houses, the House of Bor and the House of Ulfang. And the Easterlings made their home in the lands just south of the March of Maedros under the permission of the Sons of Feanor.
Yes, and the Easterlings are famous in the First Age for an act of treachery. So let's talk about a little bit about the fifth battle, right? In First Age 472, Maedros gathered a group of allies together for what they thought would be one final assault on Angband for good.
They thought this was the end-all, be-all.
Yes.
And I guess it sort of was, but not in the way that they thought.
Yeah.
So they called this union of allies, they called it the Union of Maedros. And this included men of the two Easterling houses, just so happened.
Yeah, and dwarves as well. Let's not forget dwarves. And during the battle that became known to be called the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, the House of Ulfang turns on Maedros.
Yeah, they turn on the allied forces. So the House of Ulfang starts attacking their former allies, including the House of Bor, who did remain faithful
Yeah,
to the Union of Maedros.
The good Easterlings, right? And this causes the battle to go completely south. They were like about to win this one too.
But then that just made it chaos.
Yeah, and this makes it just go totally fucking south. They lose the battle, and it ushers in a new era of darkness in Beleriand.
So the House of Ulfang, in this case, would be the ones who are the secret
Evil.
Morgoth.
Secret evil ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Ulfang's son was the one that organized the treachery.
Evil.
Yeah.
So we have a excerpt here about this from the Silmarillion, chapter 20, of the fifth battle, Nirnaeth Arnordiad, read by Trever.
Yet neither by wolf, nor by Balrog, nor by dragon would Morgoth have achieved his end, but for the treachery of men. In this hour the plots of Ulfang were revealed. Many of the Easterlings turned and fled, their hearts filled with lies and fear. But the sons of Ulfang went over suddenly to Morgoth, and drove in upon the rear of the sons of Feanor. And in the confusion that they wrought, they came near to the standard of Maedhros. They reaped not the reward that Morgoth promised them, for Maglor slew Uldor the Accursed, the leader in treason, and the sons of Bor slew Ulfast and Ulwarth ere they themselves were slain. But new strength of evil men came up that Uldor had summoned and kept hidden in the eastern hills. And the host of Maedhros was assailed now on 3 sides, and it broke, and was scattered, and fled this way and that.
Yeah, it really goes tits up for them right there.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, not cool. And so after one of the horrible side effects of this loss is the occupation of Hithlum, right? Morgoth would not give fertile lands of Beleriand to the Easterlings. Instead, he gave them the relatively sparse country of Hithlum.
Kind of northern barren.
Yeah.
Yeah, so up there in Hithlum, there they enslaved the remnants of the living people there at the end of the First Age, and the Easterlings were eventually defeated by the host of the Valar in the War of Wrath at the very end of the First Age. And some, after that, fled into Eredor, and even some went further east.
Yeah, went back home. And those, the descendants we see in the Third Age are descendants of those people.
Gotcha, the ones that we end up fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's get into it, guys. We mentioned it earlier in the episode. We're about to get into it. Let's talk about the Druedain of the First Age, because the Druedain are cool as fuck.
Yeah, outside of, like, the Numenorians,
Yeah.
the Druedain are probably our favorite men characters. Outside of the Dunedain, the Druedain are probably our favorite men.
Yeah, same.
Does because it has the word Edain in it, but does Drew specifically have like a meaning for? Is that similar to the Edain?
Edain just means man.
Okay.
So it means like the Droog man, because remember they were called Droog earlier.
Droog, yeah. Okay. Well, it also kind of sounds like druid.
Yeah. Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe
like
it's got a
like
similar...
the Dune Edain, men of the West. That's
Yeah.
what the Dunedain are. There's Dune Edain.
Yeah.
So this is the Druedain. So they're men of... I'm not sure what Drew means.
I'm not sure either, but they were called the Droog at one point, or the Druoth. So that could be
a cool combination of things to be known as.
Yeah. We got names for them: Druedain, Druoth, Droog, Woses. That's what the Rohirrim call them.
Woses.
Woses. And wild men of the woods.
Yeah, and so these men, they're actually heard about during all 3 ages, and they are a little shorter than most men. Average height of about 4 feet, in fact.
Yeah.
And they're very broad with heavy... This is the exact description.
It says it. Yeah, we're not making this up.
Very broad with heavy buttock and short legs.
Yeah, heavy buttocks and short legs.
So they're very stout folks with big asses.
Sounds like a dwarf.
Yeah. And they have a similar stature and build to dwarves.
Yeah, that's how they're compared.
They have dark, sparsely populated hair on their head. They were regarded as unlovely by the Eldar.
Assholes.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
pretty rude.
That's pretty rude.
Yeah, they have wide faces and deep-set eyes with heavy brows and flat noses.
Yeah, their eyes were small and black, but they were known to glow red when they were angry or suspicious.
That's weird.
And some had tufts of facial hair, but it was not common.
Yeah, it said that those who did were very proud of it, though.
Oh yeah,
I believe
okay.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's get into the origins of the Druedain. So the Druedain, they were descendants of the of an unknown group of men that awoke in Hildorian in the beginning of the First Age.
And the Druedain were constantly persecuted by other men. They left Hildorian for the west to find peace, and they may have left even sooner than the three houses of the Edain, as the Druedain were essentially already in the White Mountains when the Haladin first found them.
Yeah, it's actually thought by Gondorian historians that the Druedain were the first men to ever cross the Anduin.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Gondor, those historians, they believe that the Druedain came into Gondor from the land south of Mordor.
Interesting. Okay. So when the Haladin arrived, a few hundred Druedain migrated with them into Beleriand. So some of these Druedain made it into Beleriand. And although the majority of them stayed in the White Mountains, all the way into the Fourth Age.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the way to the end of the Lord of the Rings, we hear about the Druedain. The Druedain pretty much stuck with members of the House of Haleth. They were homies forever.
Yeah, and although some dwelt in Dorloman under Hurin,
Because he was Haladin.
because he was Haladin, and
his mom.
he lived in Brethil at one point in his youth, so some of them were up there with Hurin.
Yeah, when Hurin went back to Dorloman, they followed him home.
I wonder if the Druedain, since they, it says here they came maybe from south of Mordor, if they know what happened to what's her name with the Unlight.
Oh, Ungoliant?
Yeah,
Because
Ungoliant.
she fled into the south too, yeah. It depends. Ungoliant's got a couple different stories. My favorite one is Earendil found her in the south and slew her.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite.
Another version of the tale goes that eventually she became so hungry that she consumed herself.
Yeah.
That'd be hard to do, but good on her.
She became the first singularity within Tolkien.
Yeah.
The black hole.
So let's talk about some of the famous attributes of the Druedain, because they've actually got some particularly cool attributes that are very unique.
They have knowledge of shit that no other men have knowledge of, or the depth of which they know is crazy.
Yeah, and they're not considered the high men or
No.
anything. They're not the long-lived Numenorians.
No.
They're not the big, beautiful
They're barely
men of
considered.
Westerness.
Yeah, barely
Yeah.
considered. And they have a great knowledge of flora. The Druedain know more about plants and wildlife than any among the race of men.
Yeah, and they're known to craft poison darts made of various plants.
Yeah, they have crazy knowledge of medicine. They said they were said to have tremendous powers of healing that some, even the Haleth, believed were magical powers.
Yeah, they had a crazy amount of knowledge, a particularly large amount of knowledge about the poisons used by orcs, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, crazy, right? They also had a tremendous knowledge of craft. They were known to be amazing craftsmen of wood and stone. They were great at carving.
Yeah, they still used stone tools at the time of the War of the Ring at the end of the Third Age, so they're very fond of those stone tools.
Yeah, remember Hanburi Han says, with shiny iron.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're still in the Stone Age, technically.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they just forego the use of iron for simplicity's sake, or if they just don't. Maybe they
I
focus.
think they're legit. I think they're so good at using the other two materials that they don't really have any need for metals.
Yeah, they must just simply not need it.
Yeah.
Well,
They must be so good at what they do.
I guess, that would kind of make sense. It sounds like they have a lot of knowledge of the land in general, so they probably just know better ways to go about doing things.
Yeah. And they also have knowledge of magic, which is very unique among the race of men. Let's talk about one of their things that are magic as fuck, and they're so cool. They're called the Watchstones.
These I didn't previously know about. I thought this was really cool shit.
Yeah. They're known to craft watchstones to protect their homes and the homes of their friends, especially the Haleth, right?
And when they say watchstones, they almost mean more like statues.
Statues, yeah. They were huge, larger-than-life statues of Druedain, much larger than you'd normally see a Druedain.
Yeah, during the Third Age, during the War of the Ring, we know some of these as the Pukelmen.
Yeah,
In Dunharrow.
In Dunharrow, yeah, we passed by them, right?
At that point, they're like super, super, super ancient, worn down to the point where their faces have no features. They're like clearly way older than anything else around here.
Yeah, they're pre-Numenorian, yeah. Yeah, and there's also a famous one of Watchstone at the crossing of the Taglin in Beleriand in the First Age.
Over by Brethil?
Yeah.
Fun. Okay. Very cool.
There's a really, really, really cool story about the Watchstones in the Unfinished Tales called The Faithful Stone, We do not have time to get into it here, but we're thinking about doing a companion piece where we read it because it's that fucking cool, you guys.
Yeah, it sounds pretty fucking amazing. So stay tuned for that.
I'm curious though. So you say they have the knowledge of magic. What about the Watchstones was magical?
Oh, they come to life.
They come to life?
Yeah.
What?
You haven't read
Stone
the story yet.
soldiers?
Yeah, bro, they come to life.
Sick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the Faithful Stone is about. So to put it in, I guess
I did not know this.
I'll in a nutshell this story. There's a famous Paladin who has a Druedain friend, and the Druedain friend has to leave to go heal his son who is sick. And they were known to watch over the houses of the Paladin, right? And so he created the Watchstone to watch in his absence.
Okay.
And while he's gone, orcs start to burn the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the statue disappears, and a Druedain appears out of nowhere and fights off the orcs and stomps out the fire.
Oh, shit.
And then the next day, when the dude who made the Watchstone comes back, he's burned. His legs are burned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So
really
they're-
fucking cool. It's
They're
almost
kind of
like transport.
tied to their...
Yeah,
they're
it's like tied to
creation?
their body and their spirit. Yeah,
Oh, the Fea?
the Fea. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's a wild story. We're gonna read it for a companion piece, guys. It's that cool.
That's really fucking cool. Okay, so to end things off here, we've got a excerpt about the Druedain from the Unfinished Tales read by Danny.
They had a marvelous skill as trackers of all living creatures, and they taught their friends what they could of their craft, but their pupils could not equal them. For Druedain used their scent like hounds, save that they were also keen-eyed. They boasted that they could smell an orc to windward further away than men could see them, and could follow its scent for weeks except through running water. Their knowledge of all growing things was almost equal to that of the elves, though untaught by them. It is said that if they removed to a new country that they knew within a short time all things that grew there, great or minute, and gave names to those that were new to them, discerning that which were poisonous or useful for food.
They're very much of the earth. Radagast
Yeah,
would have got along
very
great
much.
with these guys.
Yeah, I
yeah.
bet Radagast knew the Druedain pretty well, I'm guessing, in his wanderings. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if, because Aragorn knows about the Druedain, and he's cool with them. Remember, he gives them the Druedain forest at the end?
Yeah, yeah.
And they bang the drums, remember? It's really cool.
Yeah.
So maybe Aragorn, who's the greatest tracker of the Third Age, right? Maybe he learned how to track from Druedain.
That could stand to reason.
Yeah, dude.
He's spent his younger life going all over the place,
All over the
learning
place,
all
right?
sorts of shit.
Like, I'm sure he ran into some Druedain.
Oh yeah, totally.
sure.
He must have.
Yeah.
Most well-traveled.
That's cool as shit.
Yeah, but that's that brings us to the end of this episode, guys. It's been a long one and a fun one. We got some final thoughts here before we go.
Yeah, so regarding the race of men, specifically throughout the First Age was a pretty wild time for men. We actually had to cut this episode into two specifically because the First Age section contained so much. Originally,
So
this
much
was
info.
one episode, but
Yeah.
Yeah, do you guys feel like you just got an info dump? Because,
Yeah.
oh boy.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting how the Sundering of Men in the First Age is not dissimilar to the Sundering of Elves. It's kind of like a geographically driven type of diversion of peoples, which I thought was interesting.
yeah, it is very similar. They start in the east and they all start working their way west, and as they come across barriers, they split into different groups. They even get different dialects of languages and some different entire languages.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's very similar to the Sundering of the Elves.
It
Yeah.
almost seems like they become different species at some point. Like with the Druedain, like their features are so different from all the other men.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not to spoil the next episode, but hobbits are technically of the race of men.
Oh, yeah. I also
That's the reason. Yeah, that
I've
makes
also
sense.
really, really loved learning about the Druedain.
Yes.
They're some of my favorite.
And what's really fun is we have a Druedain section for the Second Age and the Third Age coming up.
Hell yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So stay tuned for next week, my friends. That's going to be episode 83. That's going to be part 2, where we talk about the race of men throughout the Second and Third Ages.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening to the KOT podcast. We've had a hell of a time. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on new episodes. Please rate and give us a nice review if you can.
And a big thank you to our patrons as always. You are such a big part of this that keeps us going. If you want to, feel free to go subscribe. at patreon.com/KOT podcast. Subscribing to Patreon can also unlock some exclusive content, which is kind of fun. So go check it out.
Yeah, we got more of that coming up soon here too, guys. So if you're a patron, watch out for that.
Yeah, and if Patreon, a regular subscription service, is not your speed, feel free. You can always reach out to us for one-time private donations. We could do PayPal or other services that works for you.
Yeah. Also follow us on social media. Can't stress enough. Join the Discord. Link in the description. The Discord is so much fun. I love everybody on there. We have a great time.
The best way to get in touch with us and link up with all our fans, and we love to communicate with you guys.
Yeah, we share fun memes. We even talk about non-Tolkien related things. It's fun.
Yeah, and if you want to discuss the episodes, we have a whole section for that too. You want to ask questions? We've got a question thread for each of us if you want to get to know us a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love Discord, but it is not our only platform. We're also on the TikTok.
The TikTok, we've been
The TikTok.
doing emphasis on TikTok lately, so check out a few new ones that we got.
Yeah, that's at keep_on_Tolkien_podcast. And then we're also on Twitter at KOT Podcast.
Yeah, we're on Facebook at official Keep On Tolkien, and we're on Instagram at Keep On Tolkien Podcast.
Yeah, and as always, don't forget to check out our merch store, keep-on-tolkien-podcast.gmail.com. We got shirts, bags, stickers. Check it all out.
Yeah, check it all out. All designed by us.
Yeah, we're gonna have
friends.
We have the Shafted shirt. I know we talk about that one all the time, but we also have a Shafted 2 in the works. So
Yes.
right. Get
Yeah, we
excited
do.
for that. Heck
We
yeah,
do.
man.
Yeah,
We
Shafted
do.
2 in the works. And then the Mintered logo shirt as well. If you've seen on YouTube, we have the Mintered logo. It's the state of Minnesota wearing our T-shirt. It's really fucking cool. Virginia, our production manager, made it. So check that one out too.
All right, but that's about all we got for you today, guys. I'm Joel N.
I'm Danny J.
I'm Trevor D.
As always,
Keep on Tolkien.
Aure and Tulaba.